When Obinna announced the death of his wife, Adana, everyone was surprised because she was never sick. Before the daybreak, Obinna bought 2 caskets. He put Adana's corpse in one and his bit in his inner chamber and prepared an empty coffin for burial. The news of Adana's death spread like wildfire. Adana, the wife of the wealthy billionaire Obinna, was known for her kindness, beauty, and quiet strength. Her sudden death left everyone in shock. She had never been sick, and her vibrant spirit had shown no signs of fading. Yet, Obinna announced her passing with a cold emotion that raised eyebrows. Adana's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Okeke, were devastated. They had always been suspicious of Obinna, a man whose wealth seemed to have appeared overnight. Adana's parents and other family members were not comfortable with the quick burial arrangement. When they arrived at Obinna's mansion to see their daughter's body, they were met with resistance. Obinna had already arranged for a quick burial, claiming it was Adana's wish to be laid to rest swiftly. He presented an empty casket to the public, while the real one, containing Adana's corpse, was hidden in his inner chamber. They demanded to know the cause of their daughter's death and want to see her corpse before the burial could hold. But Obinna was prepared. His hired policeman shielded him, ignoring the demands of his in-laws, and went ahead to bury his wife. Because Adana's parents were poor, they could not do anything. They couldn't fight a billionaire like Obinna, who was ready to spend his money to achieve what he wanted, but they knew all was not well. They could only watch as their daughter was buried without proper rites. They knew the circumstances upon which Adana died were questionable, and Obinna's refusal to show the corpse of their daughter to them further proved he had something to hide. When Adana's parents returned home that night, in their grief, they performed an ancient ritual. Stripping naked, they called upon the spirits of their ancestors and placed a curse on whoever was responsible for Adana's death. They commanded Adana's spirit to rise and seek justice. It's believed in most Nigerian culture that if one places a curse without wearing clothes, he has connected with the nature and the curse will manifest on time. Obinna and Adana had been married for 7 years without children. She endured the pain and the humiliation of her husband even when she was told her husband was the problem for their lack of childlessness. She followed her parents' advice and stayed back. Because they had no child and they stayed alone, it was difficult for anyone to know the circumstances behind Adana's death. In his sitting room, Obinna felt fulfilled to have achieved his goal. Obinna's mansion was a fortress of luxury, but beneath its opulent surface lay a dark secret. In a hidden chamber, accessible only through a concealed door in his bedroom, lay Adana's corpse. Obinna had preserved her body, ensuring it remained intact through the services of a secret doctor. Every night, he would enter the inner chamber and repeatedly sleep with Adana's corpse without any remorse. This is the demand of the secret brotherhood family that granted him wealth. The brotherhood's terms were clear. To maintain his billionaire status, Obinna had to sleep with his wife's corpse for 7 years. Initially, the thought sounds odd to him, but the allure of wealth and power had drowned his conscience, and he was too afraid to lose everything he had gained. Obinna doesn't want to lose the billionaire status he had been known for and chose to do the will of the devil to maintain his wealth. He continued this evil every night, and the secret doctor he employed to clean Adana's corpse after the evil act was punctual and made sure it's preserved to avoid decomposing. One night, as Obinna entered the chamber, he froze in terror. The casket was already open, and Adana's corpse lay with a faint, eerie smile on her lips. He stumbled backward, his heart was pounding. He had locked the casket the previous night, he was sure of it. Immediately, he called the doctor, who confirmed that he had also locked it. That night, Obinna couldn't bring himself to perform the ritual. Obinna couldn't muster the courage to sleep with Adana's corpse but wondered what was happening. He returned to his bedroom, his mind racing with fear. The next morning, Obinna tried to shake off the previous night's events, convincing himself it was his imagination. But as the days passed, strange occurrences began to plague him. At first, he ignored it and continued with his activities and increased his outreach program, which he has been using to convince the people that made everyone see him as a philanthropist. Adana's parents began to blame themselves for forcing Adana to marry Obinna even when she said she was not interested in him and complained about his source of income. Adana had repeatedly told her parents about Obinna's lifestyle and sudden wealth that could not be traced to any business, but her parents wanted to escape poverty at all costs and ruined their daughter's life in the process. Even when Adana couldn't give birth after several years of marriage and the doctor told them Obinna was the problem, her parents still pressured her to stay because of the fear of losing what they were getting from him. In the morning, Mr. Okeke returned the car Obinna gave him to his compound, and the couple continued to invoke the spirit of their daughter to haunt her killer and make them confess. Adana's spirit refused to rest. Obinna had started to feel uneasy and could tell all was not well. Sometimes, he will hear someone walking behind him, but when he turns back, he won't see anyone. At night, he hears strange voices calling him and would suddenly wake up to see no one in the bedroom. This continued, and after some days, it got worse. During a high-stakes business meeting, he saw Adana's ghost standing in the corner of the room, her eyes filled with sorrow and rage. She whispered, "Confess, Obinna. Confess your sins." No one else could see her, and Obinna's erratic behavior alarmed his associates. At night, Adana's ghost would appear at the foot of his bed, her voice echoing in his mind. "You took my life, Obinna. Now, I will take your peace." The curse placed by Adana's parents was beginning to manifest. Obinna's strong heart became weak, and he was already afraid of what was coming after him. He became paranoid, and hired additional security men to protect him. In the morning, he called a member of the Brotherhood, who took him to a spiritualist to ward off the haunting of Adana's ghost. After consulting his cowries and offering some sacrifices, the herbalist assured him that the sacrifices he performed would silence and blind the ghost of Adana from locating him. Obinna felt relieved and thought the burden was over, but when the night fell, Adana's ghost appeared again with a stick and flogged him to go and confess his sins. It became clear no amount of money and sacrifices could silence Adana's spirit. The torment became unbearable. One evening, as Adana's ghost appeared before him, her face twisted in anguish, Obinna broke down. He fell to his knees with tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry, Adana, my wife. Please forgive me. I promise to repent. I didn't want to do it, but I had no choice," he pleaded. But Adana's spirit refused to listen to his cries and pleas. Before she vanished, she warned him that if he refused to turn himself in at the police station and confess his sins, she would ensure he didn't live to tell the story. Obinna was tired and frustrated after every option to stop Adana's spirit and have his peace back failed. That night, he concluded he would go out and confess when the day broke and face the consequences of his action. The next morning, Obinna walked into the local police station. His face was pale and his hands trembling as he talked. He went there alone without his usual long convoy and securities. The policemen on duty were shocked as he spoke. They quickly called the division police officer, who called Adana's parents to come to the police station. In the presence of Adana's parents, Obinna confessed to his crimes. He revealed how he had joined a secret brotherhood and sacrificed his manhood for the wealth he was given. He admitted to poisoning Adana and sleeping with her corpse to fulfill the brotherhood's demands. The room fell silent as his words sank in. The news spread like wildfire, shocking the nation. Obinna, the revered billionaire, was a murderer and a ritualist. Even people who had admired his wealth and called him a philanthropist began to curse him and said they would rather remain poor than commit such evil because of wealth. His confession went viral, and the public demanded justice. Obinna was arrested and charged with murder and desecration of a corpse. During the trial, Adana's parents wept as the details of her death were revealed and the extent he had abused their daughter when she was alive and how he had been abusing her corpse. The court sentenced Obinna to death by firing squad. But Obinna, the manipulator, had one last card to play. He believed with his wealth he could evade justice and still live a normal life. But he had limited time to execute whichever card he wanted to play, as he was to be executed after 5 days of the court ruling. At the prison, He quickly made friends with the prison officers who directed him to their boss. He bribed the corrupt prison controller with $1 million. Another inmate was arranged to take his place in the execution. A private jet was prepared to fly him abroad for facial reconstruction surgery that would make him not to be recognized, allowing him to start a new life. At this point, Obinna thought he had played his card well and had the opportunity to live a normal life when he returned back to the country. But as he boarded the plane, armed officers stormed the tarmac. A prison officer who was angered for being shortchanged in the sharing formula of the bribe had tipped off the authorities. Obinna was rearrested, and his properties were confiscated. The prison controller was dismissed from service, and the proceeds of the bribe were seized from him by the government. Obinna was rearraigned. The court ruled that his assets be forfeited to Adana's parents and that he be killed by firing squad in the next 48 hours. Obinna knew it was the end of the road. He knew he could not run anymore and had to pay for his crimes. On the day of his execution, Obinna stood before the firing squad, his once powerful frame now frail and broken. But before he is executed, he has one last offer to make. He was given the chance to say whatever he wanted to say. My fellow citizens, even though I was extremely rich, which you all can testify to, instead of allowing myself to pass through the natural stages of life and endure the pain to make money legitimately and enjoy with my family, I chose the shortcut to success. I achieved my aim of becoming a billionaire, but my happiness was taken away from me. I couldn't impregnate any woman because of the covenant I took, and I was eventually forced by the devil to kill my wife and sleep with her corpse for 7 years to maintain my wealth. But see my end today. After all the fame and the wealth, this is where my story ends, and I hope you all learn from my mistake. To my in-laws, I am deeply sorry for causing you pain and killing your only child you entrusted in my hands because of my greed. I am not asking for your forgiveness, but I hope you will be strong enough to continue with life without the presence of your loving daughter, Adana. He ended his speech and prepared to take the bullets for his evil actions. As the bullets hit him, Adana's ghost appeared one last time, her face finally at peace seeing that justice has been served. Adana's parents used half of the wealth to establish the Adana Foundation. The foundation aimed to help the less privileged, fight against forced marriages, and raise awareness about ritual killings. Adana's body was taken from the inner chamber of Obinna and given a proper burial, attended by her family and the community. Her legacy lived on through the foundation, ensuring that her death was not in vain. Years later, the Adana Foundation had become a beacon of hope. It provided scholarships to underprivileged children, offered shelter to victims of domestic abuse, and campaigned against the dark practices of ritual killings. One night, a group of children playing near the old mansion claimed to have seen a figure resembling Obinna, his face twisted in agony. They said he was begging for forgiveness, his voice echoing through the empty halls. The townspeople dismissed it as a mere ghost story, but Adana's parents knew better. They had seen the power of the curse they had placed, and they knew that Obinna's soul would never find peace. Obinna's confession had far-reaching consequences. He had named several high-profile members of the Brotherhood during his trial, including politicians, businessmen, and even a respected traditional ruler. The public outcry was immense, and the authorities had no choice but to act. A special task force was set up to investigate the Brotherhood. Led by Detective Amina Yusuf, a no-nonsense investigator with a reputation for cracking tough cases, the task force began to unravel the Brotherhood's intricate web of corruption and ritual killings. Detective Amina and her team faced numerous challenges. The Brotherhood was deeply entrenched in society, with members in positions of power and influence. Evidence was hard to come by, as the Brotherhood had a knack for covering their tracks. But Amina was relentless. She followed every lead, no matter how small. Her breakthrough came when she discovered a hidden ledger in Obinna's mansion, detailing the Brotherhood's activities and listing its members. The ledger was a goldmine of information, providing names, dates, and locations of their rituals. Armed with the ledger, Amina and her team began to make arrests. The first to fall was Chief Emeka, a wealthy businessman and prominent member of the Brotherhood. He was arrested at his mansion, where evidence of ritual killings was found in a hidden basement. Next was Senator Deo, a powerful politician who had used his influence to protect the Brotherhood. He was arrested during a late-night meeting with other members, caught red-handed with incriminating evidence. One by one, the Brotherhood's members were brought to justice. The public watched in awe as the once untouchable elite were paraded in handcuffs, their crimes exposed for all to see. The trials were a spectacle, drawing media attention from across the nation. The evidence against the Brotherhood was overwhelming, and one by one, its members were convicted. Chief Emeka was sentenced to life imprisonment, his wealth confiscated and used to compensate the families of his victims. Senator Deo received a similar sentence, which ended his political career. The traditional ruler, Eze Nnamdi, was stripped of his title and sentenced to death. His trial was particularly shocking, as he had been respected so much by his community. His fall from grace served as a stark reminder that no one was above the law. The Brotherhood's downfall had a profound impact on society. The arrests and trials sparked a national conversation about corruption, ritual killings, and the abuse of power. The government introduced new laws to combat these issues, and the Adana Foundation played a key role in advocating for change. Adana's parents, though still grieving, found solace in knowing that their daughter's death had not been in vain. The foundation they established in her name continued to thrive, helping countless people and ensuring that Adana's legacy lived on. As for Obinna, his name became synonymous with greed and evil. His story served as a cautionary tale, reminding people that no amount of wealth could buy peace or escape the consequences of one's actions. If you like this story, comment and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories. I would like to read your views about this story.